recording is starting.
All right. Hello. So here we are with the Divergence Zone. And today we are interviewing each other so that you get an idea of who the founders of the Divergence Zone are, what motivates them, what inspires them, and why they're doing this and so passionate about this. So I get the honor of interviewing Kat today. So hello, Kat.
Hello.
So first off, tell me like just a little bit about yourself of just hi, how are you, and what has you be interested in the Divergent Zone?
All right. Hi, I'm Kat, and I I just really want my whole grounding, my whole being is like community. I'm very community oriented. You're not in this alone, and I that's why the Divergent Zone really lit me up. I mean, from a really young age, I was referred to as the child whisperer. My friends were like, growing up, everyone would say like they just knew I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be something. I kind of took them by surprise with my first degree in tourism and rec management because I wasn't working necessarily with kids, which in the end didn't work out because I didn't like shuffling paper anyway. I wanted to be back out on the floor with the kids and the seniors and the people. I was way too social for that paperwork stuff all the time. And that's it. It's that community. It's that supportive community ground roots approach to things.
I love that. Thank you. I like for those that you are watching, how I met Kat is actually Kat is a service provider for my son. And I adore and love Kat's philosophy and how she is with kids and how around Kat, kids are seen and heard and valued for and like celebrated for who they are. Like my son loves himself so much every time he walks away from an interaction with Kat. And that's what had me be Kat, I love you and I want to do something with you that really supports people and expands what's possible for anybody, any child. So thank you.
That's just it. That's where I come from. I think what I bring to the table, and I have for so many years, is that I don't come with expectations. I come with, I'm here. I'm here to enjoy where you're at today. I have things that I could maybe work with and grow on, but I'm totally here present to where you are today. And if you like just knowing, like reading kids being like, oh, well, today's not going to be a work day. Today is just going to be a connection and grounding day because we're not going to get anywhere anyway. So I'm not even going to push. We're just going to be. And that's okay because that's building that relationship of feeling safe, of being accepted. Because when you don't feel safe, when you just feel pushed, you're not going to make the same progress. You're not going to even want to make progress. You're just going to feel pushed the whole time rather than guided.
Guided, and really the core foundation of relationships and connection comes first is what I really hear what you're saying.
It's that autonomic response. I need to feel safe first. That's my first priority always. You must feel safe because if you don't feel safe, we're not getting anywhere else. We're not getting past the cortisol running through your body. Yeah. And that safe zone is where the learning begins. When you feel safe to make mistakes, that's when learning begins. And so much of this leads back why I so strongly fell into RDI, like relationship development intervention, is because that starts at home with parents. This community really starts in your house of like, I feel safe to speak up and to communicate what I need. And then we can extend that bubble bigger and bigger, get the community bigger and bigger as they become more confident.
Yes. Thank you. What I'd love to hear, because like I hear that you have all these tools in your tool belt. You know, first off, you have some inherent skills, abilities, and gifts and loves and passions that have you so connected and related to with the child in front of you. And then you have this plethora of tools that you get to pull out of your tool belt at any time. So I'd love to hear a bit about your history, your journey. Like, you know, I'm sure you have all kinds of certifications behind your name.
I got a whole whack of letters after my name if I wanted to.
I know. So let's just like spend some time giving you accolades for all of your learning and taking it on. Like, you know, what has been Kat's journey?
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. I came out of high school. I was in high school. I shadowed a really amazing 65-year-old man who was an adventure programmer for the city of Port Alberni. I was like, yeah, I want to be 65 and skiing back diamonds and getting paid to do so. It's like, that's what I want. I'm going to be a recreation director. Little did I know that that didn't really exist. That was like a little tiny like blip in the existence of what recreation programmers actually do. So, but I went through, I did the school. I actually knew by third year out of the four that it was probably not what I wanted to do, but you were told you had to finish it. You were so close. That perfectionist in me had to have it anyway. And so I went on and I was a recreation director for the district of Vanderhoof for 2.5 years. And didn't like shuffling paper. I fell sick, waited 2.5 years for surgery and ended up moving home. And at that point, I decided that if I was going to do something for 40 hours a week for the rest of my freaking life, I was going to enjoy every minute of it. And I just really took that like inventory of like, what do I love? I love being with kids. And at the time, I was teaching Special Olympic figure skating for the local club. And my partner in crime, who was an SLPA, or a speech language pathology assistant, she's like, Kat, you're really good with these kids. They were 25, but um, have you ever thought about being a speech path? And I was like, 7 years of my life? Thousands of dollars? Hells no. I'm not having my hair fall out again. And she's like, well, what about this rehabilitation assistant program at CAP? It's a 3-year program crammed into a year and a half. You're a really great student. It's only a year and a half of your life. And you're certified as an occupational therapy assistant, a physiotherapy assistant, and a speech language pathology assistant. So you'll have all these different domains that you can interact with the kids. And so I was like, yeah, yeah. And I really loved that program. It was by far, it wasn't really geared at kids a lot, but it was like the theory for an hour and a half in the class. And then the last hour and a half was practical, rolling people over, making casts, using TENS machines. It's like you learned it, you did it, which is generally how I like to work with the kids. So I did that for a little while. I came out and I actually knew I wanted to work with kids. They told me I would never work with kids, that pediatric therapists don't get into pediatrics to work with RAs like me. They get in to work with the kids. But here on Vancouver Island, there's just such a shortage of support for families and kids that I, one Sunday afternoon, sent 3 or 4 emails out to behavior sites here in Victoria, and by lunchtime, or like by dinner time on a Sunday, I had 3 or 4 interviews all lined up. So I worked for a company here for a while, and I just found I really didn't align with some of the stuff that was going on. I didn't want to turn my back on a child. I don't care how ridiculous it must seem that they're upset. Those feelings are real. I I couldn't do it any longer. I didn't necessarily align with how they were using the kids' money. Having a $400 meeting for four therapists sitting in a room, giving me, the interventionist, the same piece of paper that they'd had for several other kids. They just put a new name on it, but you had to have an hour meeting for that and pay you each $100 for it. That just it just didn't sit right. There was a number of other things, so I just started reaching out and being like, what else is there? I started picking up a few clients and working on my own, and then I found relationship development intervention. And I feel like it was like this beautiful like light at the end of the tunnel. It was what everything I always wanted. It was like it was based on that relationship, and that parents need to be more involved, and that one of the things that happened at the one center is like, I'm like, we really need to deal with mom's anxiety, because this isn't inhibiting the boys' ability to do what they need to do, because her anxiety is so huge that they're not doing the things they need to do because she's scared. And they're like, well, that's an adult problem. We work with the kids. And I was like, well, if we don't deal with this adult problem, we can't help I'm not going to get anywhere with the kids. So that's where relationship development intervention just was like, this is so amazing. Like, it's really a whole family approach. We're not putting a rush on anything. And that's where this, like, the heart of the divergence zone is acceptance. You're perfectly fine just the way you are. Yes, you can learn. Yes, you can grow. but you are perfectly fine just the way you are right here and now.
Even great, not just even fine, even
Yeah.
great.
You're an amazing being just being who you are. And like
Yeah.
looking at some of my kids I've worked with forever. I mean, he's 11. He's almost as big as I am, but he loves to do things cuz they feel good. He'll fill the bathtub with soap and slide in it because it feels good. How freeing would it be if we just did things because it felt good and not cared what anybody else thought? I'm a little
Yes,
bit
please.
envious. So that's what I want to help pa- families, parents, EAs, like the rest of the world see, that when you see this child who's being quirky, I'm like, but it's a beautiful thing if you take a closer look.
I love it. I so hear how through your journey, you knew you loved working with kids. You knew you wanted to make a difference. You knew kids seen, heard, valued right in front of you. You get to meet them where they are, and you get to see them for how great they are, and you get to bring that gift. And at times, you were pretty frustrated going
Yeah.
through your process and up against certain obstacles, and navigated different paths and came out of certain certifications, like, didn't apply them the same way, and kept reinventing yourself, looking and looking
Well, and that's
for a
it. Like
philosophy that you align with.
it was like that when I work with an SLP, they have a very narrow approach. When you work with an OT, they only have one approach. And I feel like this gives me the whole picture. I'm not the end all be all, but I'm willing to be like, well, the little girl can't pick up peck. She doesn't have any grasp. So the SLP who wants her to pick up the picture, that's just not going to happen. Right? It gives me a little bit more insight to what's going on. And and for a lot of people, like there's been places where that hasn't been valued, but in a lot of the therapists I've worked with, they do value what I bring, the experience I've had, and the other trainings I've had outside of their field. And I think the biggest thing is that I never stop learning. When I find, like, I have a couple kids who have dyslexia that we found out, so I dove down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then it's just like now I have this, like you say, these toolboxes that I'm just ready to share with the world, being like, look, there's this great resource and this changed the world for a couple of my clients. This didn't work for one, but it worked for two others. Here's some options.
Yeah. Well, what I really love is how inquiry based you are. Like, you meet a child where they are, and it's a personal phenomenon. Every child is a totally unique being, and they have their specifications. And you meet them right where they are, and you also get related to what they're interested in. Like, what are their own personal goals? What are their own yeah, you really, like, I hear you as such a partner with every child you're in front of, to meet them where they are and to be a companion and guide to
And
anywhere they want to go.
I see myself as walking alongside them on their path and highlighting different things which they may or may not take in or want to explore. But you're like walking down the path and you're like, oh, look at that bird. And they're like, nah. So you keep walking down the path. Oh, look at the frog. Oh, they're really interested in the frog. Okay, let's go over and look at the frog. Like that's how I kind of see me working with the kids. Is I'm just walking around beside them, making sure that they're noticing the world around them and following what they're interested in.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you. And a question for you, like, and this could be to different audiences. So, to parents. So, first, specifically to parents. Um, what would be one thing you would so want a message to parents? Like, what would be one thing that, like, if you could have parents either get, or parents were left with, from every time they interacted with you, what would you want parents left with?
I think the two biggest things I want them to get and understand is that their child is not broken. They don't need to be fixed. And that this is a long, like, we're running a marathon here, not a sprint. We're not in a rush here.
Gotcha.
Those would be my two, right? If the child's feeling rushed, he's not feeling safe, they're not, like, we're not going to make his most process. I'd rather you have one session a week or have 15 minutes of quality interaction rather than 6 hours of stressed out interaction. And it may take 6 months to do that thing, but those little things are all going to snowball later, right? It's just going to pick it up and it's going to get bigger and bigger, bigger. It feels so slow at the beginning. But at 19, when they're driving their own car and they're going to university and they're do you know what I mean? None of that stuff, you're just like, oh, it was worth it. But when they're the age of 5, it feels like it's never going to come. They're never going to speak. They're never going to read, whatever that never in your mind is going to be.
Love it. Thank you. That was very clear. And now to a different audience, to service providers or people that work with kids or provide services or supports in any way. Again, might be the same message, but it might be something different. Like, what would be your
Oh, for my
specific?
support workers, it's always going to be meet the child first. Deal with the mental, emotional being standing in front of you before you work on any of those other goals. They need to feel safe. And the most amazing book I just read, Connection Over Compliance, is geared towards service providers, teachers, EAs, like OT, like any kind of therapist. Most of my OTs would be very aware of the like safe and sound protocol, so they're very aware of that phenomenon. But yeah, for many other people out there who might not be so aware, is like being aware of like what your child looks like when they're not calm, what they do look like when they are calm, and how do I get them there? Like for your son, it's the hammock. For another friend, her daughter needs water, so they put a pool in the backyard, and they have baths sometimes 3 times a day, because that's what brings her daughter down.
Yeah, that's me personally.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's just like before we can have our do any learning, we have to feel safe and grounded. I mean, that's why you moved to a boat. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay, now a different audience, same question. So again, what would you say or want children, kids, neurodivergent youth, specifically neurodivergent youth, actually? Let's go with that target audience, neurodivergent youth. What would you love them left with?
That they're a powerful being and that they have every right to feel safe, to have a thriving environment, whether it's at school, sports, a job for our teenagers. You're allowed to put your hand up or like ask your boss, hey, you know what? It's really loud in here. Can I work somewhere quieter? You'll get better work out of me. You're like, you have every right to ask for those things. That would be
I
my
love you. Can I just say thank you and I love you? That's exactly why yes, you are such a perfect person to be a founder of the Divergence Zone.
like my only dream for any family I work with is that their kids grow up to be confident adults in wherever they are on the spectrum, wherever they are in their development, but being like, hey, I'm okay with where I am and I'm still learning and this is what I need from you and I'm not ashamed of it. That's the end goal, besides putting myself out of a job. I'd like to give parents enough tools so they don't need me anymore. And then parents pass those tools on to their children, and then I'm out of a job, but there's always someone else who can use me.
Mm, I love it.
And
Okay,
here at the
so
Divergent Zone, so many parents can pick my brain. And that's my dream, is just being accessible to those who actually want to do the work.
yeah. Well, that's actually what would be my next question, actually. So here's the Divergence Zone. What is your vision for the Divergence Zone and the people using it?
Oh, wow. It's really big.
Okay, give me the biggest version of your vision.
I see not only a like thriving online community with people from all over the world, with workshops going weekly and conversations going in groups and like so many things that I can't even keep track of them all. But I also see the podcast, but I also see in different communities different things going on. Like here in Victoria, maybe things, some things are like parent meetup groups, some teen drop-in centers, and we have these things popping up like all over Canada and then all over the States in different places. So this Divergent Zone becomes a safe place worldwide. I see retreats for parents being run. I see family camps being run where the whole family goes camping, like to a retreat center of some sort, a farm, I don't know, a horse retreat,
All kinds of options and
all
fun
kinds of options
destinations
out
are
there.
coming your way.
It's right. Like, and where parents get some time to get some tools, the kids are looked after, then they come back together, and then they have an opportunity to work on the tools they just learned or just enjoy their children. And yeah, I just see it becoming a worldwide phenomenon.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so we are going to get a lot more time to talk with you in the future. And we will also be doing impromptu interviews with each other randomly because why not? Because we have a lot to say that we want to be heard and seen. For
And
the
we're not
value
quite
it
quite sure,
offers,
we're never quite sure what's going to come out of our mouths. So it's always great.
yes, yes. So thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you bring. And what would you love to say as your last words?
I would love you all to join us at the Divergent Zone. I'd like to get to know each and every one of you.
There you go. So come and play with us at the Divergence Zone and have access to Kat, all of her experience, and her giant commitment and stand. Like, Kat loves youth. Kat loves kids. Kat loves people. And Kat wants every single child, human on this planet to love who they are, to embrace who they are, and to know their agency and their abilities, and to be empowered, is what I heard from today.
You got it.
Okay. Thanks, Kat.